I can see you folks clear as bell, even though is that sunshine, Matt, in Colorado?
That is sunshine in Colorado.
It's supposed to be 3 feet of snow. What are y'all doing there?
Why do we not have any sound coming out of our TV, though? Because that just makes you really quiet.
That'll be a first.
That will be a first. Okay, hang on. Mute microphone. Turn camera off.
Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I'm going to turn the TV off and turn it back on. We had sound when we showed that video, right?
For sure.
Okay. Stand by, Chris.
Standing by. Plus, yeah. I've got this headset on, so it makes it look like I'm somebody over at NASA.
You look very official.
I can improve it right here. We're at about
that guy. Oh, you got the aviator glasses.
About 30,000 feet. We're going to hold here until we can land. Okay, everybody. It's going to be a few moments.
Shoot. Okay. So, Chris, if you knew anything about technology,
sure.
What would you recommend would get your voice back onto this TV here?
I'll go to system preferences and check out the sound portion. Are you on a PC?
I am on a PC.
Go to control panel.
Okay.
Sound preferences.
Okay.
And then put it through the system like Sansa or Sony or whichever.
Apparently I'm calling you. Why am I calling you?
I don't know. I'm not picking up.
Okay, this worked just a second ago, Chris. Why is this not working now? Well, we just had the volume control on the TV up.
Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, so I've got you on my computer. I don't have you on the TV, but I've got volume or video on the TV.
Is it a VGA cable that's connecting the TV and the laptop?
HDMI.
Okay, yep. You're gonna have to go into your HDMI settings. There will be some sort of active console window that will pop up specifically. If you unplug HDMI and plug it back in, the little queue will come up that'll give you your.
Okay, so I've unplugged you.
I'll plug it back in, and it'll give you a queue of like, hey, there's new hardware using, set visual, set audio.
Yeah, we did this last week. Okay. Okay, so I just plug you back in.
Cool. See, if this was Nintendo, you just take the cartridge out and blow in the cartridge a little bit. You go.
Yeah. Let me. Is this? This page is accessing your camera and microphone. I want you to be.
Shoot. Yep, that's good.
Is that microphone turned on?
Well.
Microphone on.
It's muted.
There you go. How about that? Did that work? Microphone showed up, then didn't show up.
No. So
is the sound turned on the TV?
No, sound's way up on the TV.
Okay.
We've got smarter people than me here now, Chris, trying to help out.
No, you pretty much won't. I know.
Many hands make lighter work.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to have you do. Can you call me right back, Chris?
Yes, sir. On it.
Okay. We'll see if that works.
Bye. Man, I'm checking. And I'm calling Matt. 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 There's Matt's face. Matt's picture. There's Matt's classroom. Check, chickity, check, check. Still soft?
Well, this is disappointing here. This volume?
Check, check.
This one?
Check, 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 check. That work?
No, I mean, I can still hear you, but we can't hear you on. Okay, I'm going to try to get off of the Hangouts on air and just do a regular Hangout and see if that works. I'm going to call you right back.
Deal. And I can record it and send it to you later, Matt, too.
It's not ringing on the TV yet, is it? Well, shoot, guys, this didn't happen to us last week, did it?
I think we used to have a wireless speaker.
Accepting all things. Matt, does that work a little bit better?
Nothing.
Huh. But does anybody in your office have an external speaker they can just plug in? I'll be as New England loud as I normally am.
I have little speakers.
You want to try those?
That'll work.
That's an Apple speaker, and I don't have an Apple. We're going to try to go get an external speaker. This worked so well last week.
It's still working great. Listen, I'm going to do this and see if I can't screen share a couple things that I've been working on, so you can
Okay.
look at stuff while I'm actually here. Are you seeing that, Matt?
Yes, your screen is up. So is this a TV setting? Is that HDMI 2, normal. All right, we'll try this. Yeah, I need to see if I can I've got to have a hookup for them, right?
That's where your headphones
Oh, you assume that I have headphones that I listen to in here. Okay.
He's like Chuck Norris. He
Plug
just
into this guy.
stares at the album until it gives him the music he wants.
Okay, wait. It's an error loading your app. Okay, I just heard you, Chris, but
Check, chickadee check. Check, check, check. It was
Okay.
the best of years.
do we have a volume on this thing or no? The computer volume? Because I can barely hear you. Okay,
Check,
try again,
check,
Chris.
Check, 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 and I'll turn up the volume on these headphone things. Check, check, check,
Yeah, I don't know
check,
that he's
check,
plugged
check,
into
check,
anything.
check, check.
I've never used those, so I
Okay.
Check, 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 check.
Oh,
Hey, listen, this is a good thing. That way we should get this out of the way.
okay. Let me ask you this. Are you guys able to hear him? Talk
Check.
real loud.
Check, talking really loud about something very important they'll never let me say again. So if you missed it this one time, that's it.
Okay.
Check. check.
So, Chris, we can't hear you on the TV, but I've got my speakers cranked all the way, and so if you talk nice and loud, we can still hear you.
Well, that I can do. As long as you can point it down so I can. I'm going to stop screen sharing there for a sec. Now we're full on. Plus,
Okay.
we'll just do a lot of audience participation. Really quickly, hold up by show of hands, how many people are in your database? Just keep flat. No, I'm kidding. So Matt, what do you want to learn about today, bud? What should we cover? What's the biggest hurdle that's in your business right now as far as seeing new business, new buyers, and new listings that are coming through?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle right now, Chris, is we don't have a whole lot of new listings. I think that's the biggest issue that people are facing is we've got a real low inventory right now. And if you can kind of walk us through what you would do with your database or how you make sure you're staying in touch with your people so that you can start grabbing some of those listings, that would be great.
Love it. One of the biggest things when we started, and I started in real estate by building houses, we would start the exact same way. And what I didn't realize what we were doing until I read that red book was what we were taking a look at a new sphere of influence like it was a geographic farm. So the first thing that we would do is the same thing that our consumers did. It's like a SWOT analysis. I want to take off my real estate agent hat and I'm going to put on my mom. She's a Southern woman, and when she takes a look at computers, she's flabbergasted. So she goes back to what works and she starts to see, okay, what are the houses that are on the market? What are the houses that are selling? And what are the houses that aren't selling? Because again, there's low inventory, and yet, or there's still a number. What's your average day on market for your typical sales price there? Is it between 30 and 60? Is everything flying off the market in like hours as soon as it hits the MLS? Or there's still houses that it takes a while for them to seize?
What's your average days on market? We got a 20 or less. The neighborhood I work in, it's 4.
Yeah.
And that's because the people listed on Thursday and say, I'll take all offers on Monday, so it's 4.
So there's really, really flying, and yet are there still, is there still a section of houses where they're just, quite frankly, they're either in bad condition or they're gregariously overpriced?
Yes.
Yes, there's still a lot of expireds.
And so there's a lot of expired. So there are people willing to test the market. They just don't want to let go of their house for the price that's anything less than what they think is, well, really the best deal going that's out there. And that's pretty much every market for the past 300 years. Gary draws that pie graph where you've got in the market, out of the market, and then there's no man's land. And this is one of the ones we used to use in our listing presentation. So you guys have a really, really quick market right here where there's property that, it's priced well and it's in great condition. And then right here, of course, you guys all know how to explain to folks, hey, these are for folks who've overpriced their property, not just a little bit to play the market, like it's just over, so there's going to be some time. And this is also inhabited by folks who have, say, in the 1970s, they used to have the bathrooms where the toilet matched the sink, matched the shower, and it was all in like avocado or sunshine or powder blue. Or maybe it's just a house where it could use some updating. It's got 3-inch purple shag carpet. And then finally, they're going to be the people who they believe that every house that goes on the market sells. So as real estate agents, we're thinking, how do we uncover the market that nobody else knows about? And sometimes it's going back and just really targeting these folks that are out of the market. Their house is either in poor condition or it's gregariously overpriced, and playing the waiting game. And what we used to do is when with all the websites that are out there, you have this ability to set up a buyer instant notification system where you can send them new properties, or you can track what's going on with a particular property. So as a real estate agent, I was going to use my own website for that, and I'd pick the houses that I knew where I had a good feeling they were just overpriced, or I'd walk through them and the photos online just really didn't match reality, and we were going to track those. So right around when it started to get to day 100, day 120, day 130, I'm going to have a particular day every month where I preview those properties. Because here's what I know for sure is that property is going to leave the market, and then there's going to be about a week window where they're going to be entertaining, different talent to come through. They'll usually remember the last person that walked through the house. So I can go preview it as soon as it hits the market. Yet if I see if it's overpriced, I may just put that on the back burner for a little bit and start to wait till it withers on the vine. And then I'm just going to start to hit a campaign of, all right, you've been on the market for 120 days. What's your next plan? I can't do that while they're currently under contract with another agent. What I can do is go and preview the property. And just by doing that, it shows them, well, number one, I've got buyers that may be interested in your property. And number two, I'm still proactive. I'm still going out there and taking a look at properties. Now, that's what's going to put me in front of those expireds or possibly even for sale by owners. Because here's what's an interesting stat. A lot of for sale by owners come from the expired market. They figured, my agent didn't do it. Obviously, it was their marketing, their prospecting that didn't sell my house. It couldn't have been my condition or my price. So I'm going to go off and do it on my own. And we've got about a week sweet spot there to hit them before they go in the for sale by owner market. The second place we'd start to take a look for, for possibly move up sellers or move up buyers was going to be the houses that are next door, because those are they're almost like the lurkers on Facebook. They don't say a whole lot. They're just watching every single move that's on there. So say you've got a listing. Matt's got his house listed at 1234 Main Street. If that house has been on the market for about 120 days, I'm going to go door knock the neighborhood around it and start to basically create a focus group. Now, this is Geographic Farming 101, where you just say, really quick, my name's Chris McNamara from Keller Williams. I knew you wouldn't come to the office to meet me, so I came out here to meet you. What I'm doing is research for my buyers, because there's a house for sale next door and it's not selling. And the average day on market in this neighborhood is usually right around 4 days. This one's been on for 120 days. What do you think is going on with the market? If I stop right there, that's one of the biggest ways to build trust, is have their input show up in my results. And you're probably naturally curious too. Why do you think this place isn't selling? I know it's 80% of all marketing's price. Why do you think it is? Well, the open house, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of people that are going through there. Or there's been construction. Whatever the case is, you want to find out what's the story, why the house isn't selling. And it also gives you the chance to start the conversation of, if we've got buyers that are interested in this neighborhood, they're just not interested in that house. So do you mind if I ask you, if I brought you an offer for, say, this much, would it be a hurdle for you to move in 30 days? No, nope, we're not going to move for 30 days. Completely understood. And I wouldn't be a real estate agent if I didn't ask. And what you're doing is you're going to proactively find out that even if this house doesn't sell, this subject property, there's still going to be about 2 or 3 more in that general vicinity that will sell, say, in the next 6 to 8 months. At the very least, you could walk away with at least 1 or 2 buyer leads that come from it. So taking a look at the expired market, not seeing as these are the properties that aren't moving, it's just stale merchandise. It's just an overpriced stock that still is going to garner some interest. You just have to find a way to farm that. And know that, if you take a look at some of the stats for geographic farming, you're probably going to knock about 70 to 80 doors before you find one listing client. So you've got to figure out, am I going to spend check equity on this? Or am I going to spend sweat equity on it? And you have a combination of both, depending on what the neighborhood looks like. Just use your head. If the streets are up and down like that, probably use marketing, use everyday direct mail, and send out postcards. There's an agent up in Vancouver, British Columbia, who he wasn't seeing a whole lot of return from his mailing campaign. So he took a yellow legal pad like this and just wrote out 50 letters. We've got buyers looking in this neighborhood. If it's the right property, they're willing to spend up to $600,000. Is this you? 555-1212. And it looked just really, really grassroots. It was a handwritten note. Walked around, taped it on people's doors. 7 listings. Now they've got an extremely hot market, and you're thinking, well, of course they got 7 listings. It was a hot market. He was also proactive, and he knew that if it was a really, really personal note, that's what was going to get him around all the other shiny marketing, the 8x11 postcards with you with your arms folded back to back with another agent, or you on top of a house saying Chris gets on it, which is extremely impactful, and it's great. It's more than heck 97% of all agents out there don't send anything out. And yet if you're going to plus it, it's going to be something that says, I took personal time to reach out to you. Well, Chris, what if that house doesn't sell? Well, great. Our job is really, it's not to find one buyer, it's to find as many buyers as possible that are out there.
Chris, let me ask you a question.
Yes, shoot, ask a bunch of them.
How much of it, when you look at marketing like that, how much of it do you think is just simply doing something different? Doing the handwritten note versus doing his postcards? Did it matter what he said, or is it just the fact that he did something that made him stand out?
Well, here's the fun part about it. That he could have given away the recipe for cold fusion on that. What it was paired with was, number one, he went out and he proactively door knocked. So they saw him doing it. Even if they were like, peeking from behind the curtains, they saw him going out and door knocking. So that's activity 1. Then he left a note. So there's the message number 2. Then they followed up again with another phone call. They got the numbers from the local title company. So there's 3 touches automatically. And here's the secret about the 8x8 that sometimes we forget, is you could have a great message once, yet I'd rather have somebody send a crappy flyer 5 or 6 times so they start to get the mind share just from the repetition of it, than one perfect flyer and they never hear from you again. Because what it shows is, okay, this person's got a follow-up system. And it's also, by the way, it's a multi-channel system. So you can be all print marketing, and yet if, say they're a kinesthetic learner, well, they want to see you out there doing something. Or maybe they're an audio learner. They want to hear what it sounds like in the market. And it doesn't mean you have to become, an FBI negotiating expert. It's just when you do a follow-up plan and you include a couple different channels, you're going to capture a larger market segment. Because when you think about it in the room, how many folks in there are wearing sneakers or tennis shoes, depending on what part of the country you're from?
We've got none here. We're not as casual and cool as you.
Yeah. Well, here's the fun part about that. If I asked you to name the #1 sneaker company that was out there, what would it be? Just yell it out. This would be the crowd participation part. So one person said Nike. What's another one?
Reebok.
Wow, rocking it. The early 80s Reebok high tops with the Velcro on the top. Perfect. Now, what we know for sure is even if you're not wearing those sneakers, somewhere along the line, they followed up with you in such a way that if you didn't hear about Nike, you saw Nike. If you didn't see Nike, you tried on Nike. They had a multi-channel experience. You just locked it in. And they've got a huge budget because they know that the more impressions they have in front of you, the more likely you are to go with the last person they heard of. A lot like the strategy when we're walking through the expired property. So we're seeing a lot of agents as we get into a shift in the market or as listings start to dry up, they're thinking, well, heck, I was door knocking, and that's kind of dried up. Well, so now I just have to add on thank you notes because there's something visual. I mean, how many thank you notes can you send? Trust me, it's a huge impact. Then after that, well, you have a follow-up call. So now they heard from you by door knocking, they've got a thank you note from you, and they've gotten a phone call. Well, what do I do after that? Maybe you could find them on social media, or maybe you could hold an event in their neighborhood. It could either be a garage sale, a block party that involves everybody, or your event could be an open house. What they're seeing, though, is that you're doing about 4 different activities versus just the one, versus them just going online on a website taking a look at pictures. And as we start to, evolve into this winter market, it's not really that as much as the previous methods that we're using got saturated, and we're business owners, so we can call audibles. We can switch into something else. How many folks in here prospect at least 100 contacts a week? Raise your hand. All right, so there's roughly 2 out of 10. So there's 20%. How many folks send direct mail? All right, so there's 30% in the room. How many folks door knock? All right, 40%. So look how we're growing here. Now, how many folks do all 4 of those? And it's right there that it's almost like a complete workout that gives you exactly the type of business that you're looking for. It also switches things up a little bit, because those of you who do prospect, 100 phone calls every single week, it starts to get boring. I don't care how cool looking your headset is. You will get bored if you don't gamify it or switch it up. Or we used to have Feel Good Fridays where we would lead generate while we're previewing property. And it was twofold. Number one, so they would hear us just going through the property. Number two, it's because we just got bored. So there's repetitious boredom that comes from a huge amount of business. You'll get excited when you find that one person who's like, yes, come over. I've got 2 burlap sacks full of money. We're ready to pay you. The other side of it is to know that, hey, listen, I'm going to have to knock 80 doors. There's something I'm going to have to do to cause me from going mildly insane on that. And it's why, gamification at work has been such a huge campaign that they've done the last 3 to 4 years, is because we're finally willing to admit, man, sometimes this is boring. Sometimes sending email after email and not getting a response, it's disappointing. I mean, we know eventually we're going to find one person. It's just, we're a Pop-Tart society. We want to see a lot of return from it.
I have a quick question for you. When you door knock, do you recommend leaving something every time? Because maybe you didn't say not to leave a card or anything, but I always figured, do you have anything you prefer to leave? Just a handwritten note? If you're door knock, do you leave something then? Or do you just write the follow-up thank you note after you've already made contact?
So it's a great question. If you go door knocking for the first time, and there's a series of houses where they just, quite frankly, don't open the door, I'd leave a note taped to the door. What I found really early on in my career, don't put it in the mailbox, because if it doesn't have a stamp on it, that's a federal offense. And here's the good news. The fine is only the cost of a stamp, so it's not like they drag you away in an orange suit. The next time I'm going to go through, and I'll plan a campaign for that week, is the next time I go through, I'm not going to do the exact same thing twice. If I'm door knocking and the first time I leave a thank you note and there's no follow-up from that, the next time I walk through, nope, because the second series on there is just strictly for volume. It's follow-up. The third time I go through, I'm going to bring is just basically a blank notepad like this, and just start to write down, all right, so if I do things 3 times and there's no response from it whatsoever, there's a myriad of different reasons that are out there that they could not be opening the door. They could work 3rd shift. They could just not like, solicitors. So how do I figure out a way to get in front of them? Or I just chalk it up to that person's not a candidate for door knocking. Offering something different each time, though, it'll start to get exhausting. So here's what I would recommend. Say whatever you bring with you door knocking it's basically an indirect offer. A direct offer is walking up to the door and saying, hey, listen, do you want me to sell your house for you this week? Would that be a hurdle? There's no question as to what you're offering right there. It's directly related to the service you provide. An indirect offer would be, hey, would you like this list of the 5 handymen that I've been using with my clients that'll help them get that small stuff done around the house before the holiday season? Or, hey, are you interested in a free CMA on your house? Or has anybody walked you through a total market overview of what's going on, what's selling and what's not selling in your particular price range? Whatever those things are, part of you is thinking, what, that might be it, Chris. That might be the idea that's going to work for me. The other side of you is starting to think, well, if I go knock 30 doors and 25 people take me up on a free CMA, and it takes me 10 minutes to put together each CMA, that's 200 minutes. It's like, 3 hours of putting together CMAs of people who may or may not, list their property with me in the next 6 months or 12 months. So instead, before I go out there, I'm going to plan something that's, it's interesting to a wide array of people, and maybe create 2 of those different programs. So I might have, one handyman list over here and one total market overview where it just covers the entire price range. And I'm not going to give it to them. I'm going to show them a copy of it, say, listen, I've got this for one of the neighbors, and they asked me for it. Let's do this. Give me your email, and I'll send you a direct copy of it. And then that way I can follow up with you. Now it's given me an opportunity to set another appointment with them to keep a promise and make sure that they remember that I kept the promise. Much like when we first had a lot of people calling on houses, our biggest mistake was, all right, hold on a sec, let me pull up the computer and I'll pull up all the information for you. Instead, we started to say, really quick, let me look up that information and I'm going to get right back with you in the next 5 minutes. That way they had to give us their cell phone number, and it was our first opportunity to make a promise, keep a promise, and remind them that we kept the promise. And Miss, you had a follow-up question.
What do you think about additional things each time? Like, for example, if there's a local mechanic shop that's willing to give you coupons onto something, is that a good way? I mean, I know it's not necessarily real estate related, but that's a thing of value.
Sure, it's better than nothing. Here's my hurdle with giving away coupons or referring people that are the cheapest is if I'm going up from door to door and I'm looking to create like a referral relationship, I want people who give the best service, not the reduced cost service. Because if they give a reduced cost, I mean, what happens if it doesn't work out? Obviously, they're issuing out coupons because maybe they're not so flush on business, and yet I'd rather refer people who are the best. And I'd mention that to them. Listen, the people that I refer to you aren't going to be the cheapest. They are going to be the best, though, because I mean, you do deserve the best, right? Great. And yet, coupons are a great way to get our foot in the door. I just want to make sure that it pairs up with a conversation. And for the most part, it's going to be about a 3 or 4 minute conversation. Hi, my name is Chris. I know you wouldn't come to the office to meet me. I came out here to meet you. What caused you to choose this area to live in? If you were going to go, where would you go? And yes, I know that these scripts sound extremely boring. There's nothing bright and shiny that's caused that person to fall back and say, what a fantastic script. Their experience is completely different than their observed, though. And what you're doing is you're creating a focus group where you don't just know the houses by the address. You know them by the last name. And if you are going to go door knocking, what I'd recommend is go to your title agent and have them pull up the house owner's last name so that when you refer to the houses, that's the Silver's house, that's the Thompson's house, that's the Davidson's house. Because you'd be surprised, a lot of neighbors don't know, 2 or 3 houses down who lives there. When you bring that information there, it's another way to build trust, which is show you're competent at your job at a level higher than they are, which is sometimes knowing their neighbors.
Hey, Chris, if you've got a minute or two, you were showing me earlier today kind of your new old way of looking at your database.
Oh, sure. So how many folks here love technology? All right. The rest of you are like, there's no way I'm raising my hand. I'm not going to be that person. You won't pick me out. Here's what we know for sure is that with all the technology that's out there, follow-up has become one of those things where we set it and forget it. I'm going to put you on a drip campaign as soon as we meet, and then hopefully something will turn out from it. What we're finding is that the people, when they're organizing their database, there are so many different systems that are involved that we almost get snowblind. And so the course we put together is called Never Ending Referrals, and here's just the real basic portion of it. And I'll show you the stacks we have here. We went back to making 3x5 index cards, and we grouped them together with the first letter of the last name. So say it's January 1st. Your first group of the year will be people whose last name starts with A and starts with W. All you're going to do is contact them and say, Matt, really quick, Chris from Keller Williams, listen, wanted to keep up with you. This year, we're going to have about 4 different conversations, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in the market, what your neighbor's house is selling for, and keep an eye, just really keep an eye on, your most important financial decision, which is your house, which will be either, what your mortgage rate is, or if you're looking to do any improvements to the house. And I'm just going to set those appointments up with you right now. So there's the first week. My first contact every single year is just setting up 4 appointments. That way they know at whatever time I'm going to call. Now, next week, is going to be my B&E group. Everybody's last name starts with B and E. Next week after that is D&O. We took 26 letters in the alphabet and we combined them into 2-letter groups because, well, creates 13 groups. 13 times 4 is 52. 52 weeks in a year. So now I know everybody in my database is going to get contacted at least 4 times a year. So, sir, you're in the front with it looks like an orange or a peach shirt. Your last name, if I could.
Edmonds.
And one more time.
Edmonds.
Edmund. So you'd be my B&E group. So you know that you, without even writing anything down, I know I'd be talking to you the second week in January. I'd be talking to you the second week in April. I'd be talking to you the second week in July. I'd be talking to you the second week in September. I know that my follow-up system it's already booked just based off the one system that's probably not going to change unless you change your last name. And if you do, that's okay. I'll be keeping in touch with you and you'll alert me to that anyway. Now, I know that 4 contacts by phone may not happen. Sometimes you may not pick up your phone. So with that, I'm also adapting a 3-attempt approach, which is just, like we spoke about earlier, I'm going to call you on one time on the phone in the morning, call you one time in the afternoon, one time in the evening. So if in the first week of January you don't respond to the phone call on Monday morning, Tuesday afternoon is going to be the next call, Thursday evening will be the 3rd call. And it's just a real simple system of changing around our times. I don't have to write anything down. I immediately know that we're going to contact one another at least 4 times every single year. And then everything that I send to you, everything I drop off at your house, every newsletter I send is going to point towards one of those 4 appointments. Something about that, something about the market, something about what your neighbor's house sold for, or checking out what your refinance or what your mortgage rate is. It's not going to be a very long conversation because you know what? You may not be interested in selling for the next 5 or 6 years. The whole idea is that I'm staying in front of you with a very quick bulleted piece of information so that when you think of real estate or selling or refinancing, I'm the first person that pops in your head. And with that, what we're finding is we don't have the overwhelm of, man, I got to follow up my database or my sphere of influence because my neighbor just listed with my biggest competitor. They thought I was too busy to follow up with them. Nope, we've got 4 appointments this year already. And so January, talk about appointment setting. I can book my appointments out for 2016, 2017, and 2018. If I'm running on a trail and I bump into somebody who I haven't seen in a while, I immediately know when I'm going to reconnect with them. And it's just a simple way of getting back into it. And Matt, you saw me this morning when I was putting together the Gary in the Box stuff. It's a real simple system where I've just got 12 months right here listed out, 30 days on these cards. And so if I take, so here's my A&W group. In fact, we're releasing just a campaign where we're talking about market centers, about the CGI. I could call everybody who's in Keller Williams. It's 140,000 people. So instead, I'm going to call coaches and team leaders. They each have a database. If it's interesting information, they'll pass along. If it's not, I'm going to talk to them next quarter and then the quarter after that and the quarter after that. Because I know if I leverage out other people's database and I don't take up too much of your time and I bring a benefit to it, it's going to be the best use of my time ever. So with that, you got to find something that you're excited about. Because here's the weird thing about real estate. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about that's extremely boring right up until they need it, and then it's the most important thing ever. It's like I don't need to know about water heaters up until 3 o'clock in the morning when your water heater breaks. Then it becomes the most important thing ever. Not a big deal to change the batteries in your smoke detector till that battery goes out at 2 o'clock in the morning and you hear that chirp over and over and over again. And you're thinking, man, I really wish that real estate agent contacted me about that. There's about 6 psychological triggers in selling, and salience is one of them. That's saying the right thing at the right time. It's impossible to gauge when that right time is without frequency of message. So we took that and we our course is about 12 sessions long. So we do one of the 2-letter groups each week. We go over things like, all right, so what's your marketing message look like? Are you proficient at what your scripts are? Not that you're going to become somebody who can repeat it from top to bottom, word for word. Are you choosing ones that get you excited? Because you'll probably be more willing to use a script that you're excited about than a script that's 16 paragraphs long that goes over the difference between buying and selling in a 3 or 5 year buying cycle. Let's face it, those are boring. Do something you're excited about.
What questions do you guys have about your business? Chris, you may not look it, he's actually a pretty intelligent guy. What questions, let's start this. What questions do you guys have? Where are you stuck right now in your business? What do you need? If you've got a free coaching session, what do you need to know? This was perfectly planned, Chris. I wanted them to sit here silently at this point.
Because by the way, just 2 weeks ago, we were exactly where you were. We were looking at, all right, so how do we launch a different program that's going to take hold of the shift and we'll just get things moving, get action that was going. And we stumbled upon this team out of Baltimore, Maryland. And they're called the Daily Group. And they sold about 250 properties last year. They had a really interesting way of doing it because they've got 4 young daughters between the ages of, I think, 3 and 12 years old. And they didn't like lead generating. Just didn't like it. Didn't like picking up the phone, doing all that. What they did like doing, though, was holding parties. And so they started to schedule 6 parties every single year, because what they found was when you hold a party, it immediately includes about 5 different contacts. And first you call them up and say, really quick, Tim, we've got a client appreciation party. It's just going to be a barbecue. It's going to be at our house. We want you to come over. We want you to, just have a good time. And it's not going to be one of those quick start things where we sit down halfway through the party, clink our glass, and then say, we've got a great opportunity that we'd love to talk with you. Nope, it's not going to be that. We're just going to get together and have a barbecue. Second call, hey, here are the directions. Make sure you're there. And by the way, we've got a great neighbor it's a lot like you. We'd love for you to meet him. And we told him that you're going to be there. So if in any case, if life happens and, it's about an hour before the party and you're in your pajamas, you don't feel like going, you remember, oh, wait, I was going to go meet Matt. Okay. Maybe it's one more reason to move forward. As soon as you show up to the party, we just say, great, have a great time. Listen, as you walk around, you're going to bump into somebody that you know, like, and trust. Would you go out of your way to let us know what you like about them? Because they're creating a community. As soon as the party's over, they send thank you notes, and they let you know when the next party's going to be. There's 5 contacts right there. 250 units. What they found was that they're just creating a community where people who like each other like to work with one another. And it's like an organized networking function that makes it non-confrontational for people to get to know one another. I've been seeing a huge amount of success with it. They just took something that they're willing to do, they matched it up with what their goals were, and they found out a way to make it work. They didn't go to analysis paralysis. They just held the first one and then corrected it each time, and now they're doing a good amount of business. And silence swept over the room. How many folks here work with investors? Or investor property? One of the agents I talked to last week, he said that a lot of the agents weren't really seeing a whole lot of investment business besides commercial. So he grabbed the newspaper and started calling up on properties that were for rent, talking with the property owner, saying, how long has this been vacant? You ever thought about doing a 1031 exchange and buying a property that was maybe just a little bit more attractive to people out there? And he said it was great because they were the most passionate people on the phone when it came to rejecting him. And after about 20, he found one person. Here's what he found out. Multiple property owners are usually investors. And that person didn't just have that one property to sell. They had 2 or 3 other non-performing properties. So the first one was an audition, and then he took the next 3 listings when he sold that one. Well, it wasn't for a huge amount of profit, yet it didn't matter. That person was a long-term thinker, and they saw, if I get into a new property with a low vacancy rate, it doesn't take a lot of time for me to make that money back up. So he took an old medium and he just put a new spin on it.
Any other thoughts or questions from you guys for Chris before we let him run? Shy group, man.
Which is good. Which is a good thing. It means that they're either thinking, or that the lobsters that I sent over for lunch just completely took hold. Did you guys enjoy the lobster? Was that great or what?
It was good. Did you catch that right out of the ocean out your back door there?
It's landlocked lobster. I bought it at Petco. They called them crayfish. Yeah, I'm from New England. I know a lobster when I see one.
All right, man. I appreciate your time, Chris.
Matt, listen, I'm always happy to help. And folks, if you're interested in taking a look at just any of the models that we have, or any of the worksheets that we have, write down my email address. It's chris@chrismac.co, and that's CHRIS mc.co. It's just co because the .com one was taken by some world-class climber guy.
Do you still have your .ca? Because isn't that where you're really from?
Oh gosh, no! I just skied a bunch up in Canada.
Oh, okay.
With the election that's coming up, I might start taking a look at property that's up there again. And yet, all right, 3 people laughed at that. The rest of them are nervous. They're like, "What's he talking about?"
The rest of them are all Bernie supporters, and they know you're with them. So.
What? Hey, listen, I went to school in Vermont. He's a great guy. I met him back when he was, gosh, I think he was about 65 years old, and that was 30 years ago. So,
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
listen, folks, if you have any questions, any coach that's out there, just give them a holler up there. We love being sounding boards. And we love to help you out. And Matt, always a pleasure, my man.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks.